All right. So here we are. Let me move this a little bit so I can see everybody. Oops. 1 second. All right, now we're organized here. Okay, so keys to creating a CS roadmap. Michelle, you want to start us off here?
Yeah, as I teased earlier, you guys are stuck with the road trip metaphor. So I want everyone to think about the last time that you took a road trip somewhere that you haven't been. And it looks like, Jan, you're not in slideshow mode, which is why I didn't.
Oh, wait, am I? Wait, I just added you here. So sorry, folks, I'm trying to do too many things at once. Let me stop. Oh, no, you're right. I'm not in SlideShare mode. Can I get into SlideShare mode?
Upper right there, to the right, in the top, kind of by your picture.
Oh,
slideshow.
Thank you.
Oh.
So presenter view? No. Yes.
I think you can just click it.
If you just click on slideshow, it'll
slideshow
happen. Yeah.
All right.
There we go.
Does that help you?
Perfect. Now we're seeing the actual slideshow. All right. If you want to advance forward one more.
All right. So.
All right. Beautiful. Okay. So think about the last time that you took a road trip somewhere that you've never been. Maybe you were heading to the beach, the mountains, that historic town that you were dying to see, but COVID. I think we're all itching to get out now after. So hopefully this is apropos. So the first step when you're going on a road trip is you're going to figure out where you want to go, right? You're researching destinations. Once you have that destination, then it's time to start planning. Where are we going to stop to eat or sleep on the way? Like that's a great restaurant. It got great reviews. Let's go try it. So planning that is kind of half the fun. And maybe I'm just an operations nerd, but I think that planning in general is half the fun. So you get all packed up, right? You grab your favorite snacks. If you have kids, you realize like you're probably with me on like, this is the most important part of the packing is the snacks, making sure you have copious amounts of their favorite snacks. Get everything loaded up, you're ready to go. But before you drive off, what do? You're going to fire up your GPS and enter your destination. And you're confident that your GPS is going to get you where you need to go safely, even if you run into traffic or road closures, roadblocks, things like that. So think of your CS roadmap kind of like a GPS. It's going to map out how you get to where you want to be. Can you get there without a GPS? Sure, right? You can probably get there, but it probably won't be as quickly or as efficiently as if you were using a GPS. All right, so where do you begin with creating a CS roadmap? So just like with the GPS, you got to start with your destination in mind. Where are you trying to get to? So that's like item number one. Begin with that end in mind. Start with your goals. Think about what you are trying to achieve. And quick note here, implementing a CS system, for example, isn't a goal, right? It's a solution to a problem or a set of problems, but itself, it is not the end goal. If you're having a little bit of trouble figuring out, what the end goal is or what you're trying to solve, I like the 5 whys framework to really get to the root cause of the issue before we start to solution. So if you're not familiar with the 5 whys, I put a link to it in the resources, so you'll be able to click through. You can also just Google the 5 whys. Super helpful in a lot of different areas. All right, so if you don't know where to start, I recommend looking at your company-wide goals. If you have PKRs, OKRs, whatever you call them, start at the top level, at the highest level that you can. What are your company's goals for this year? And then start filtering down. How do we, as a CS organization, contribute to these goals? What can we do to help push that goal forward for the company? Is it renewals? Is it gross margin that they're after? Knowing those numbers and how you support and improve them is really critical in making sure that you get everyone on board with your goals.
that where I was supposed to put up measure what matters?
Yeah, that totally. Yep. Perfect.
Okay.
I'm almost there, but it's perfect. So again, if you're not sure what your goals should be and you don't have clear like company-wide goals, you can start with things like, what are your problems? What's keeping you from achieving what you want to achieve? Maybe take a look at your customer journey. Are you giving customers the experience that you want to be giving them? Is it simple for your team to execute? If you don't have a customer journey, I'll do a quick plug. Next week, Russell Ward is going to be talking everything customer journey. So join next week to learn more about the customer journey. All right, so that brings me to tip number 2, measure what matters. Knowing what impact the projects on your roadmap are going to have on the team, on your customers, on the company as a whole. Understanding the ROI of those projects, it really helps you create a business case to get them funded, especially in this environment, right? We're seeing, we're probably not the only ones. Everyone's seeing budget pressure. The CFO is king right now. So knowing what the ROI, what we're going to gain out of it is really, really critical in making sure that the organization sees the value of what you're trying to put into place and what you're trying to accomplish. Make sure those are SMART goals. If you're not familiar with SMART goals, I put some links in the resources. Most of us probably are, but if you need a refresher, there's a link in there. So again, you're constantly measuring. And then item number 3 is going to be prioritize ruthlessly. Figure out what the level of effort is for what you want to accomplish. Is it high impact and easy to do? No brainer. Put that on your roadmap, right? Is it high impact but hard to do? Still worthwhile. But you do need to be realistic about how much time that's going to take. You need to have an understanding. Break it down by quarters. Think about your goals and then break it down by what you can reasonably accomplish in a single quarter. And then as you're doing that, think about who's responsible for each initiative. If you don't have a dedicated CS operations function, or even if you do, be thoughtful about what percentage of someone's time they can really truly dedicate to that project or initiative to move it forward. And then also consider the schedules of the stakeholders, other stakeholders from maybe other departments. You need to make sure you get buy-in from their leadership too, because projects can get blocked in all sorts of areas. So if you are relying on other parts of the organization to accomplish one of your goals, you want to make sure you get the buy-in from that leadership early. I have found just in general, it's really, really common to overestimate what you can accomplish in a given period, or to underestimate how long something's going to take.
Yeah.
I usually add about 30% to my initial estimates to add a cushion.
That's so funny you say that, Michelle, because I tend to be great with budgets. Like I usually come in under my budget, but I always underestimate how much time something's going to take. Not necessarily for a project, but like in my life, like I have all these things I want to do and I just like, oh, I'm going to get that done. I'll just do that this afternoon. And then like, boom, doesn't happen. So, yep, definitely.
Yep. Always remember that saying yes to something means saying no to something else.
Yeah.
There's only 24 hours in a day. And that brings us to item number 4, which is expect some detours. Right? You're going to have to be flexible. Let's say you're on your road trip and there's a road closure. In our terms, think of that as budget or headcount that you are anticipating getting cut or questioned or pushed back. Your GPS is going to tell you the impact of that closure, right? So as soon as you hit a road closure or traffic or there's an accident, your GPS is going to say, oh, now instead of taking you 5 hours, it's going to take you 6 or 7. If you have that ROI that you've measured up front, you're going to be able to calculate what the impact is, and that will help put you in a better position when you're trying to negotiate for those funds, for that headcount, things like that, if you can measure what that impact is. Another example is, let's say you're, again, back to the road trip analogy, you're on this road trip, out of the blue, a friend calls and they need some help. And of course you want to help them. But there's always an opportunity cost that you have to factor in before you can say yes. So is this a friend calling and they need you to pick something up and it's on the way? Great. Is it 500 miles in the wrong direction? And if it is it important enough to move, to change your trajectory for? What part of the trip or what will you miss out on if you say yes to their request? Because we know things come flying at us all the time. Things change and get thrown at us. So having that good understanding of what we miss out on if and when we have to take on other projects is going to really help with your planning process.
Yeah.
And that brings me to the last point, which is iterate. Constantly update your roadmap. It's just like the customer journey. It is not set it and forget it. You should be reviewing it and updating it every month. You want to look at implementing things like feedback loops, where you're getting an understanding both up and down the chain of the impacts, the projects that you're having, of timelines, and that you're constantly reassessing every time you get new information. Is this still the most important thing? Are we still on the right trajectory? If we've got projects that are slated for next quarter and something comes in, you're going to have to be a little bit flexible, but constantly keep your eye on the ball in terms of like what your ultimate goals are as these things come in. You may have to add some to your roadmap, but your roadmap will give you an ability too to say no to some things, right? To be able to say, no, that actually doesn't align with our goals as an organization. We cannot take that on.
Yep. Whoops. There we go. And by the way, with some of these things, well, just take you really quick. So there's also on this topic, I'm doing a workshop at the, what is it called? Propel 23, the onboarding conference. So we'll go through some of that in a second too. But then now just kind of on this slide, in terms of how CS operations impacts the roadmap, especially now, Michelle, that you're in CS Ops, maybe you can speak to that a little bit, because I know that, I've definitely talked to, it's interesting that you have a title that is called CS Ops and Strategy, right? Because I've talked to a number of people who've been in CS Ops and they're really like a tool administrator more so than a strategist. And yet when you think about how you're going to use a tool, you can't really use a tool unless you know how you're going to use it, why you're using it. And again, thinking about where you're trying to get to, right? So I think that it's instructive to kind of speak to briefly just kind of how you see those two connected, and then we'll jump out to what do you call it? Breakout rooms.
Yeah. So I see CS operations and any operations function really should be a partnership. They're there to help make you successful, help you execute, and they're going to have insights and perspectives on the things that you're trying to do. They may have ideas of things that are possible. It's much more than just technology, right? CS operations is all of the things that you see on here, and you're going to need all of these to execute on your roadmap. Most everything that you're going to do is going to require a new process. It may require technology changes. You're going to want to use data analysis, metrics, and reporting to report back on it and to understand what the ROI you're getting from this investment is. You're going to need to do training and development, enablement for the teams. But end of the day, if you have a dedicated CS operations function, think of them as your partner in helping you get these things accomplished. Bring them into the conversation, because they're going to spot things that you may not see, that they see every day operationally. So I would say, definitely a partnership. If you have operations as its own function, use them, lean on them, and they will help you with all of the things that you see on here in achieving your roadmap.
Awesome. So here are some links. So I think we put it in the chat, and it's also in the Slack group over in, what's the name of the channel again? CS Office Hours, Reflection and Ideas. I still haven't changed the name of that. CS Office Hours, Reflection and Ideas. That is the name of the channel. And in today's session, which is dated March, oh no, I called it March 21st. I have to go in and edit that. It's really March 28th today, right? Darn, how did that happen? So it's March 28th, and that's I'll change the date, but if you look at the last entry there, there's already some links in there, including to these slides and to the breakout room notes. Ashlyn, did you put the notes in? Can you put that in one more time, just in the chat, so people have that?
Yep.
Awesome.
I just did.
All right, so these are the questions we're going to go through when you're in the breakout group. Think about a project or initiative you want to accomplish this year. How are you going to measure if it's successful and the ROI of it? So let's say if you're building a customer journey, implementing a CS platform, any of these types of things, you might be doing some type of project that you might do. And if you're not currently in a CS program, you can either imagine one of these things and speak to it, or you can think about some other goal that you have. Building a roadmap is building a roadmap is building a roadmap, right? Like we can apply this process to anything. And that's what I'm doing at the conference later. But I'll just share with you really quickly before you go. So this is the conference down here. So like SuccessHour is talking in the morning about scaling a program. And then down here in the afternoon, I'm walking you through how to scale your onboarding. Literally in these slides, I have 5 easy steps to scale your onboarding program. It's DIMAP, it's documented, identify, matrix, assign, plan. It's like easy, hard versus high impact, low impact. So you look at like, here you have like the matrix here, then you have your list you're going to put it on, and then you're going to have your roadmap that you put it in various quarters, right? So this is the kind of stuff that you want to do basically anytime you're working on a project. You want to map out, and we should be thinking about our CS programs in the same way. We should be thinking about how we're building out our CS programs. If you're thinking about it as a CSM, you want to think about your book of business. What are you going to do with your book of business during the next, quarter, the next, whatever, 4 quarters? Think about, for any of the things that you're doing, what is a goal you want to achieve? How are you going to break it down in terms of what your overall plan is, where you want to go, and breaking it down into your thing? So if you're doing customer marketing, same sort of thing. You have certain goals you're trying to do. You're trying to connect it to those business OKRs. You're trying to connect it to your customers and what their goals are. So you have those things in mind. You come up with what your roadmap is, and then you're going to break it down and figure out how it's going to be in groups, right? So that's what we're challenging you to do today. So I'm going to give you, let's see, I'm going to put you in 8 groups, like sort of a random number of people, but that should, where am I doing breakouts? Over here. Does that work? Any questions before we head out?
Quick question. Are you going to provide us with the question again on the breakout group, or should we annotate
That's why you
that?
go get the notes. That
Okay.
notes over there, that's where you get the question.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. And be sure to write the notes in. That's the whole point, because then we keep a master list of what everybody's done together. Good question though. Anything else? Everybody got your notes? Because this will go away. This chat will go away when you go off to your group. And off we go. All right, everybody is back. How did it go? What kinds of notes do we have here? Anybody have an aha moment? Wait, did people take notes? Oh, yes.
Yes.
Thank goodness. It looked blank to me.
Oh,
So how did it go? Who wants to volunteer to start talking through how things went? How are you thinking about a roadmap now that you didn't before? I can call on somebody.
Big pink ears.
Yeah, we took a few notes, and we're sort of focusing on like comparing each other's stories, really. I think for me, it's mainly just the fact that having a roadmap is a great way to organize the priorities overall. Like I think one thing we did have in common was a lot of us, it's either the CS program and team is changing or it's brand new. So there's a lot of things that need to be done, and prioritizing is key.
Awesome. And so when you're thinking about, so Jillian, I see that for you, you're looking at both your customers and you're looking at some projects that you have internally as well, right?
Oh yeah, so if anyone looking at those notes, I listed off some of the things that we just did in Q1. And so a lot of what needs to be done going forward is building off of those things. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so did you feel like when you were doing it in Q1 that you had a plan? Or were you sort of like, okay, here are some things generally in my head and I'm working on them?
There was a plan because they were actually rocks for the department that fed into company rocks. So we're organized in that sense, but it's really on a quarter by quarter basis.
Mm-hmm.
So having a roadmap is great to just kind of get everything out of your head and everyone else's heads for future beyond just quarter to quarter.
Nice, good. And for everybody else, what is a rock?
Goal. And we break it down to say, like, why do we need this? And how are we going to do it? And then after the end of the quarter, as a company, we share for each rock if we were successful in completing it or not, and why, and how we did it and what we learned.
Okay, awesome. So like, I thought maybe ROC, isn't that what it, like it has something it stands for or no?
Not in our case.
Oh, okay.
Is
All
that
right.
the rocks, pebbles, and sand analogy, Jillian? Where your big tasks are your rocks and you're filling up the jar and trying to make space by starting with the big rocks first. Is that one?
Yeah, you know what? That's right. So I have seen that. And the thing is, this is the second company now where we use rocks. And so this is based on the entrepreneurial operating system. And I think that is where that analogy is used. Yeah.
Awesome. But
Yeah.
do you have like a link to anything about that?
No, but I'll find it.
You can find it. Yeah.
Let's share that with everybody. Just before the meeting today, I was meeting with somebody who was telling me, he showed me his whole, like, he has a whole schema of how he organizes things for the year. And every year he comes out with these plans, personal and professional, and like what he wants to do in the quarter, in the year, 3 years, and lifetime. And he reevaluates this every year and sort of builds on it and that sort of thing. So like there are lots of systems out there if you want to take a look at potentially a system that might work for you. So something like a rock is something that you might do. What are some other insights that people had? Were there any aha moments for anybody, or like, oh, this is what I'm going to do now? Any thoughts on this, or just like, oops, maybe I should start thinking about this? We've got another group here. We've got Joseph, Julia, Eric, Sarah, Tiana. Anybody from that group want to share?
I think Felicia was talking and wasn't on mute.
Oh,
I'm gonna raise my hand.
Felicia. Oh, good. Thank you. I'm so glad. I didn't even know. Good. Felicia.
Oh, I was looking to raise my hand in the reactions. I was just gonna say that something that was good about this for me is that, I do think it's important to have a roadmap, and oftentimes we have like teams that will put together something and say, okay, this is our roadmap. We're looking for our MVP. This is what we're going to go with. And then we look back and we go, wait, how did we get here? We're so far away from what we were, first of all, what we desired, what we said we wanted, what we needed, how it's aligned to OKRs, how do we end up here? We really got off the road. So I think we abandoned the GPS and we went to like someone's gut feeling and somehow got detoured, and we're in a whole other place at this time. But I think that essentially the roadmap is very important, because you can go right back to it and get right back on track with, this is what we said, and this is why we said it was important, and this is how it's tied to, for us, our NRR, like, and our GR, like, I can't hear these acronyms anymore. Like, everyone's always spewing them, and it's like, but what do you mean? How are we measuring this? What can I see this physically and understand how we're tied to this? And this roadmap is going to get us there. So I really like that, Michelle, like, took us on this journey and gave us these tools of what to look for in key areas, and tying it to your time is money. I mean, I had to do a breakdown just for an SOP where I had to explain like how much time was spent. So I was with my handy timer and looking at how much time did it take me to do all of these manual things that should be automated.
Yep.
So that I could make the case that we need this automation, so I could be a lot more productive and not just a data entry clerk. So, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are things like that, right? Like when I was leading a team as an interim leader a year ago, part of what I had them do was go back and take a look at the last 4 weeks, and then we did it live in the sort of upcoming 2 weeks sort of thing. But I had them look at their calendars. How much time are they spending on customer meetings versus internal meetings versus some of these other projects that they were working on? And I was like, look, I'm not looking over your shoulder. That's not the point of that. The point is we need to understand how we're spending our time and what we can do to improve it, or do we need more people? Do we need more people in support? Do we need more people in customer success? Do we need to separate out onboarding from customer success, which is what we made the case to do from that, right? You can also measure what things are getting dropped. So there's how you measure your time, or what is the success of something? What is happening with churn? Or like, if you're thinking about a roadmap too, if you want to improve your churn rate, like so that you decrease your churn rate or increase your retention rate. So let's say you have that goal that you want to improve it by 5% by the end of the year, or 10% by the end of the year, or whatever it is, depending upon, what your rate is. So great. So you want to do that by the end of the year. What are you doing in these quarters before? How do you break that down? What are you going to measure? What are your lagging indicators versus your leading indicators? What are the things that are contributing towards that, right? All those kinds of things that you can break down and turn them into the steps that lead to your goal, your objectives, and your tasks and things. Yep. Productivity goals, starting with the end in mind, all of that stuff is really important. What other sort of insights do people want to share? Any other ways you might organize your time, or things you might measure, projects you might work on? Yeah, you got 2 people. Good.
I thought
yeah.
Sorry, I thought it might be worth sharing. I was in a group with Mohammed and Courtney and David. Courtney's a customer marketer, and to cut a long story short, because there's not a lot of time left, when you're designing the customer journey, don't forget the importance of marketing that journey to your customers. Courtney had some fantastic insights about the work that she's doing. And I think one thing that many customer success teams fail to do is to collaborate well enough with their marketing teams to actually market to their own customers what they're doing. So there you go. That's all I wanted to share.
Right. And where is communication in your plan? Because if you're going to communicate, you need to both communicate up, you need to communicate out in terms of internally, but you also need to communicate with your customers. And that's something you really have to think about. If you're going to bring a whole new product or project to your customers, something new for them to be able to do, then what if you know you're going to try and deliver that by the end of April? When are you going to start communicating that to them? When are you going to start making that available to them? When do you want them to start adopting it, or whatever it might be, right? You need to think about that communication as part of that plan. Absolutely. Kathy, what did you want to share?
I'm wondering about the relationship between CS Ops and the CS roadmap? Like, how does ops facilitate or influence what you want to do with your roadmap, or help you do that?
Yeah, Michelle, you want to help with that?
Yeah, so Jan, I don't know if you can put up that CS operations slide
Yeah.
again.
Mhm.
So what I found is that most projects or initiatives that you want to take on have, I'd say, most of the components of CS operations, right? There's going to be new processes to create. There could be technology implications where you're changing something in your CRM, or you're changing something in maybe your CS system. Operations is going to help with that. With data analysis and metrics, with the before and after, the actually measuring, the reporting, the dashboarding. Those are all things that CS operations can and should help develop, support. And then training and development. I think what we just heard about, it's important to make sure that our teams are enabled, and potentially our customers, if it's going to be a customer facing initiative as well. So those are all areas where CS operations can lean in and help you create a plan and really help you execute the things that you're trying to do. That in many cases, the CS team, the managers, the leaders are trying to take on their own right now as a side job.
Got it. That helps a lot. Thank you.
Absolutely. While we're here, I'll just, one more time, I'll say, so this is the link here where you can see what's actually the onboarding. It's basically, this is similar to what I'm going to share at this conference workshop. You can apply to anything. I'm going to make it specific to scaling your onboarding, but you can use it for anything. And so it's just like, if you have a customer journey and you decide what things you want to automate or make more scalable, then you can go and put them in, the easy, hard, hard to do, easy to do sort of area. Then you go low and high impact, and you put all the projects there. Then you get everything for your easy high list and put it here, and then evaluate and assign it and give it some, this is just where you use Agile for assigning points. Do that again for hard. Then you figure out where you're going to put it in your roadmap, right? Like, this is one approach. It's an easy approach, right? But think about what works for you in terms of how you can organize what you need for your CS program, for your book of business, for your personal life. You can apply that to anything. You can use a different method if that works better for you, right? So it's just, think about how you're going to make it happen. But absolutely, if you're a CS leader or if you're in CS ops, you want to apply this to a CS program. And too often we don't. And yet there's nothing, better to apply it to, right? So I just want to encourage you. And that's why I thought it'd be really exciting to talk about that here today. But, and we are at the end of our time here. Any other sort of thoughts or questions, aha moments? Anything else we want to share? Any other takeaways? Was there something that we didn't mention in the group, but was mentioned in your breakaways? Like, oh, be sure to think of, remember this. Anything else? Was it useful today? Was it helpful?
It's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Very helpful.
Was it helpful? What was useful about it? What was helpful today?
I think anytime you have tips and tools that help you remember that you're being grounded, not just in perhaps your day-to-day tasks, but the bigger picture, just helps you perform better. So as you're cognizant and aware that what you're doing affects, not only your customers, but internally, your work, your team, the teams that you're collaborating with, and how you can get that information very clear and be able to communicate where you're going and what you're doing, it just makes you more effective in everything that you do. So
Awesome.
it's important.
And I see that Lynn, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. Is it Pietriga?
Patriga.
Patriga. All right, Lynn, I know you've done CS Ops and now you're heading up a team or a CS program. So anything here that you want to sort of share as insights, or don't forget to, or
I think more just kind of those aha moments you mentioned. I think one thing, Michelle touched on it earlier, which is like, I'm not the only person that thinks I can get things done faster than I actually can. So remembering to take that in, because my to-do list keeps getting longer and longer of things I'd love to do. And I think especially in a small startup or just thinking about operations in general, is those priorities are so important. Those big rocks that someone mentioned, like having those things that ground you in defining what you're trying to do, that end in mind, I think is so important, because it's so easy to get distracted by the little things, the new thing that's coming out, and trying to stay focused on what you're working on, I think is really important. I think the other thing too that's come up is measuring that ROI. A lot of CS programs the end goal is to reduce churn, which you might not see really get into anything for a year down the line. So if you're working on improving your onboarding process, like that cohort's not going to renew for maybe a year or two, like you're not going to see the impact. So figuring out not only what is your end goal of reducing churn, increasing that renewal rate, but what are the other things that you can do in the meantime to figure out, is this working quarter by quarter? Because there are a lot of times you need to prove that something is working, or else you're just maybe doing the same thing over and over again, and you're not really knowing if you're going in the right direction, especially in startups, especially when you're moving very quickly. Other things are changing. Try and figure out what can you measure in between there.
Yep. You see me just nodding my head. And Lynn is actually April 11th. She's going to be co-leading with me on First in CSM, First in CS Leader. And a lot of what we're talking about today's session, next week with the journey mapping, and in the April 11th session applies not just to when you're in a role where you feel like you're totally alone and your hair's on fire, but it can apply to everything that you're doing, what everyone's doing, even when you're not alone, if you're in a group. And just, it's all about kind of seeing that big vision and then coming up in with the details of it and coming up with that plan and prioritizing, and then iteration. So awesome. Thanks so much for everybody coming by today. Michelle, thank you so much for, just all the work you put into, getting us grounded in the topic today. Really appreciated that. And it's great to see everybody here today. So, all right. Next week, I'm not here. I'll be on a road trip, but Russell Bourne will be here, and he'll be walking you through the whole notion of a customer journey. All righty. Cool. All right.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Jen.
Everyone. See you all.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning into this week's episode of Success Hour, formerly known as CS Office Hours. We regularly put out new content, so to be the first to know, like this episode, tap that notification bell, hit that subscribe button, and we look forward to seeing you soon.